Tonight, Canberra Airport forced into lockdown as a gunman opens fire inside the terminal. Calls for increased security at Southern Cross Station as youths run amok on the roof. After a tough week, Matthew Guy rebrands with a name change. An out-of-control P-plater slams into a Brookfield house, leaving a young family homeless. Legal action threatened as Swinburne is accused of standing down TAFE teachers without pay. And the Magpies in the wars as their winning run comes to a halt.
This is Melbourne's 9 News with Alicia Loxley.
Good evening. Travellers have been forced to run for their lives as shots were fired inside Canberra Airport. Police swooped on the suspect with the terminal forced into immediate lockdown. Chris Ullman reports.
The moments after multiple shots rang through Canberra Airport. Witnesses filmed the suspected shooter being subdued by one policeman as two others trained their pistols on him. On the floor nearby lies a weapon.
There was some guy upstairs in a white T-shirt and the federal police had him in handcuffs.
The middle-aged suspect was led to a police van.
This afternoon at approximately 1:30, a male has entered Canberra Airport in the departures area. He is sat in one of the areas adjacent to the glass windows. After approximately 5 minutes, this male has removed a firearm from his possession and let off approximately 5 rounds.
Saskia was on her way home to Melbourne.
I just checked in, so I just dropped my luggage and I was just around the other side of the glass when gunshots rang out, so that was pretty terrifying. And everyone started screaming and yelling, "Run."
There was confusion on the tarmac as a concerned pilot called the tower.
Know anything about what's happening in the terminal? There seems to be a lot of people running and no one seems to be answering our radio calls.
Gary was waiting for his son's flight to arrive.
I heard 3, maybe 4 loud shots, and there were about 6 people sitting near me who ran in towards the toilets.
The marks from 4 gunshots which shattered the peace at Canberra Airport are clearly visible on 3 panes of glass on the first floor.
We have no idea of any motivation. I can say that there were no injuries.
Police have isolated the crime scene, but the airport has reopened. Chris Ullman, 9 News.
And flights between Melbourne and Canberra have been cancelled in the wake of the shooting. Elizabeth Moss is at Tullamarine for us. Lizzie, security there has also been tightened.
And understandably so, Alicia, authorities are not taking any chances when it comes to passengers' safety here. As a result, the Australian Federal Police have upped patrols here at Tullamarine, so you can expect to see a very strong police presence in and around the terminals here. The other flow-on effect, as you've mentioned, is flights between the two cities. We've seen at least 5 cancellations between Melbourne and Canberra. 3 of those flights here, Qantas flights arriving from Canberra to Melbourne later this evening, they've been cancelled. Customers now moved on to other flights. Alicia, it's pretty safe to say that authorities will not be taking any chances here. Safety is the top priority. The advice for passengers, of course, ahead of arrival, check with your airline, see if there's any delays or cancellations.
Good advice indeed. OK, Lizzie, thank you. There are calls tonight for an urgent security review at one of Melbourne's biggest train stations. Concerning footage has emerged of a group of youths roaming freely around the roof. Heidi Murphy has the details.
Sightseeing from an angle they shouldn't be able to get to. The 4 pick their way across the roof, one stopping to snap his mates, another testing the strength of the plastic. They disappear from sight before returning minutes later at a quicker pace, running up and over one of the highest points in the roof to make their getaway.
It's such a iconic facility that you would think that given the roof the way it is would be hard to get access to.
Iconic and busy.
It's one of the busiest stations on the network. I think it's only behind Flinders Street, even on the weekend.
People coming and going from interstate, from overseas, from country areas. And to have people being able to access the roof like this is a concern.
No damage appears to have been done.
The kids getting around on the roof doesn't seem to be a particular threat, but it's the principle that's involved in here. If anyone else can get onto the roof like that, there's a concern there.
If they were to get up there and perhaps have an accident, fall off the roof or cause damage, that potentially causes a lot of disruption to the train network.
Station management is calling it highly dangerous, a serious act of trespass and security breach. Nine News has been told it's very rare for a trespasser to be able to get onto the roof of this station, and Victoria Police will be investigating this breach.
I think the government certainly should be reviewing security and making sure that members of the public can't easily get onto the roof.
Authorities do need to take every precaution they can, try and stop people getting into those authorised spaces.
Heidi Murphy, 9 News.
Free public transport is being offered for all healthcare workers in one of the Coalition's biggest policy announcements yet. That's not the only change from the party. With just over 100 days until the election, Matthew Guy has had a rebrand. Reid Butler reports.
Flanked by his wife and health minister, the opposition leader was all smiles. Selling the Coalition's plan for free public transport for 260,000 healthcare workers.
It'll cost over $100 million, but it's money well spent. We need a new Victoria. New approaches, new ideas, new ways of thinking.
And a new name, kind of. Recent opposition media releases rebranding Matthew Guy, Matt Guy, following weeks of controversy.
I don't mind, you can call me whatever you like. Matt or Matthew, what do you reckon?
Your parents call you Matt.
They do.
It's a leaf out of the Premier's book. He went from Daniel to Dan in the lead up to his 2014 election win.
Hi, I'm Dan Andrews.
I've been called Dan for a very long time. Very long time.
The Premier was at the Peter Mac Cancer Centre with his own gifts for healthcare workers.
I've got a couple of little presents. Here you go. Welcome.
700 international employees have now been recruited to work in Victoria's health system. The government wants 2,000 here by the middle of next year.
There's also a $10,000 relocation incentive if you're coming to Metro Melbourne and a $13,000 relocation incentive if you're going to regional Victoria.
We're actively out there in the market recruiting the world's best healthcare workers.
The government wouldn't say if it would match the opposition's free public transport pledge. Instead, the Premier pointed to Labor's own scheme, paying healthcare workers $3,000 in retention bonuses.
It's the opposition's job to make announcements. They can make promises. We're getting on and taking action, and that payment will be made tomorrow. The first of those payments, that's not a promise, that will be made tomorrow.
Both sides are splashing the cash, and there'll likely be many more announcements relating to the healthcare sector. It's shaping up to be a major election issue. And with just over 100 days until we go to the polls, the race is well and truly on.
We're not stopping. It's a sprint now, and I'm running every single day.
Reid Butler, 9 News.
A Brookfield family has been left homeless after a driver lost control and crashed into their house. Jordan Lee and her 2 children were just metres from the impact. Maggie Rayworth reports.
A red Commodore hurtling past, then revving turns to screeching. Ploughing into this house just after 7 this morning, destroying a young family's home.
Myself and my 2 young boys, 1.5-year-old and 3.5-year-old, were trapped inside for over an hour until it was safe for us to be able to get let out side fence.
The damage extensive. The reckless driver first smashing into Geordie's car, the force knocking down a load-bearing column.
Myself and my 2 kids and my partner were homeless. Yeah.
With a high risk of collapsing, the house has been deemed structurally unsafe. These belongings now all her family has.
We're not allowed to step inside, we're not allowed to live here anymore. I'm trying to be strong, my kids and everyone, but I'm crumbling on the inside.
The alleged hoon, a 21-year-old P-plater from Melton West, suffered minor injuries. The moment before she crashed was captured from multiple angles.
You want to do that? Go on a racetrack. Go do your drag racing somewhere else, but not in a residential community.
You can see just how close the out-of-control hoon came from hitting the couple and their children. The family was sleeping in this bedroom, just metres from impact. Today, Geordie says she's thankful her kids are alive.
I'm so thankful that neither of them were injured.
The driver is expected to be charged with careless driving. Maggie Rayworth, 9 News.
Salman Rushdie's condition is improving. The acclaimed author taken off a ventilator and now able to talk after he was stabbed on stage in New York. As Amelia Adams reports, Rushdie's alleged attacker today pleaded not guilty.
24-year-old Hadi Mata, handcuffed, masked, wearing a prison jumpsuit, pleading not guilty to attempted murder and assault in the second degree. Accused of stabbing Salman Rushdie as he prepared to speak at an event in New York State. Prosecutors describing it as a targeted, pre-planned attack. New video showing the frantic aftermath as witnesses tackled the suspect to the ground and rushed to help the injured author. John Moore was among them.
I said, you'll be okay. We're going to take care of you. I am fine. I do have a couple bruises on my arm.
75-year-old Rushdie underwent surgery and is making progress. He's been taken off a ventilator and can talk again, facing a long battle after decades of fighting for free speech. His controversial work triggered death threats and a fatwa from Iran in the late 1980s, a bounty on his head which was never lifted. Iranian news outlets and locals applauding the attack.
And I was so glad because of the insults Salman Rushdie had made against our Prophet, and the fatwa issued against him finally worked.
US President Joe Biden condemned the stabbing, praising Salman Rushdie's refusal to be intimidated or silenced. As law enforcement confirmed, Hadi Mata was sympathetic to the Iranian regime and Lebanese terror group Hezbollah. He'll face court again next week. In the United States, Amelia Adams, 9 News.
Swinburne University is facing legal action after staff were stood down without pay while negotiating a salary increase. The university has denied it, but says staff who refuse to record student results or attend meetings as part of the action will not be paid. Mimi Becker reports.
David Curtin and Duncan McKim are plumbing teachers at Swinburne, but tomorrow they won't be in class after the university notified them they wouldn't be paid while participating in protected industrial action.
I felt like it had pushed us into a corner and left us with no other option than to not be able to turn up for our daily teaching duties.
The two-year negotiations coming to a head on Friday, with all vet staff across the Croydon, Hawthorn and Wantirna campuses warned their pay would be docked.
I've still got 2 young children and a mortgage, and like everyone, I've got bills to pay, and it's a really tough decision to take.
The union's now looking to step up their fight.
It's our view that potentially the university has failed to comply with the terms of the collective agreement, so we'll be certainly exploring legal avenues to make sure that they do that.
They're treating their employees unfairly. They're disadvantaging students by taking this action. It's time to come back to the table and get on with negotiating.
But Swinburne University is adamant staff aren't being stood down.
We cannot lawfully pay staff for work that they are lawfully refusing to do. That is within our rights, according to our Enterprise Agreement and the Fair Work Act.
While the negotiations are set to continue over the coming weeks, the unions will now be forced to dip into their emergency strike funds to support their members who will no longer be paid by Swinburne. The university has offered a 2% pay rise, which has been knocked back by the unions. Mimi Becker, 9 News.
All right, Clint Sanaway is here now with a look ahead to all of tonight's sport.
Hi Alicia, thanks so much for that. Tonight in sport, a dream run has come to an end for Collingwood. With Magpie Jack hamstrung, those stubborn Swans could do no wrong.
Murphy going back, Heaney as well, game 150, clever tap, Franklin! The greatest show on earth!
More on that soon. Also, Big Tom's big day out at the G, but not all's well at Tigerland. Another dagger to the heart of Blues fans after the one that got away. The Red Devils hit rock bottom after a nightmare road trip, and why Aussie Cam could soon be feeling on top of the world. Plus the Bombers, they've fallen flat at Marvel Stadium. That's all coming up soon in sport, Alicia.
Lots to look forward to there. We'll see you soon, Clint. Ahead in Melbourne's 9 News, 2 women killed after shots were fired into a car in a targeted assassination. 1 dead and dozens injured as a stage collapses at a music festival, and another cost blowout rocks the controversial North East Link. 2 women have been murdered, shot dead as they sat in a car in Sydney. Senior police say criminals have thrown the rule book out the window, breaking an unwritten law and stooping to a new low. Ruth Wynne Williams has the story.
Gunned down on a Revesby street, 48-year-old mother Lametta Fadlala sitting in the back seat of a car outside her Hendy Avenue home when there was a knock on the window from the barrel of a gun, an attacker opening fire. A Saturday night ambush police claim to be targeting Fadlala, but hairdresser Amne Al-Hazuri, known as Amy to her friends, also in the back, caught up in the barrage of deadly fire.
10, 12 shots, it sounds like, and then you just hear a couple of cars speeding pretty quick down the street.
This is an organised, methodical, planned murder. It bears the hallmarks of an organised murder.
A 16-year-old girl and a 20-year-old man were also in the car.
They were just been together on a social night out.
And as the attackers fled, so did they. Around the corner to nearby Western Street, where they called for emergency help. The fight to save the two critically injured women playing out outside Peter Aitken's door.
They worked on those two women. Oh. It was amazing. Truly amazing.
Fadlala dead at the scene.
They put a flower on the lady.
38-year-old Amy Al-Hazuri taken to Liverpool Hospital but couldn't be saved. As that played out, what investigators say could be a network of attackers left a calling card, torching cards on Presland Avenue in Revesby, a Mercedes on Devlin Drive in Wattle Grove, and another Mercedes on Elizabeth Crescent in Yagoona.
The flames probably came up past the telegraph poles.
The house actually shook. It was really, really loud, totally unexpected.
Police seizing security vision believed to show attackers in dark clothing, pouring petrol and making off. Sources have told 9 News that Al-Hazuri and her young friends were only at this address to style the older woman's hair before a night out. As the group piled into the car, they had no idea what was to come.
The 16-year-old girl and the 20-year-old young man that were in the car with them, incredibly lucky that they weren't killed or seriously injured. They're devastated. They're assisting with inquiries, as if all the families that are linked to both the women that have lost their lives today.
This afternoon, specialist police raiding the Hendy Avenue property.
Police search warrant, open the door! Police search warrant!
The investigation now spanning several suburbs. Lametta Fadlala is known to police. Detectives say she has criminal links, but right now, investigators haven't found a tie to recent gang war.
There's no evidence at all to suggest that it's part of any current conflict. We're going to treat this on its own merits. There used to be an unwritten law with the criminal element, especially in organised crime, that you don't touch family and you don't touch women. I think that rule of engagement and that law book's been thrown out the window.
Fears tonight of what this targeted assassination could spark. Ruth Wynne-Williams, 9 News.
Already the most expensive road project in the state's history, the North East Link, could end up costing taxpayers billions more than has been set aside in the state budget. Documents obtained by the opposition under Freedom of Information reveal it's been valued at $18 billion by an insurer. That's $2.2 billion more than its current price tag. The toll road linking the Eastern Freeway to the M80 is due to open in 2028. Timothy Weeks, the Australian teacher held hostage by the Taliban, has returned to Afghanistan, praising his former captors. He's now preparing to celebrate a year since the hardline Islamic regime regained control of the country. Eddie Meyer reports.
Once their hostage, now an honoured guest. Timothy Weeks spent more than 3 years in captivity, held by the Taliban alongside his American colleague, Kevin King.
I don't want to die here.
Now he's their biggest fan.
I am also coming to celebrate the 1-year anniversary of the governments of the Islamic Emirate of Afghanistan, who I have stood behind.
Converting to Islam on his return home, Weeks caused controversy, praising the hardline Islamist group accused of human rights abuses and the subjugation of women. Shortly after his arrival, a rare demonstration in the capital, Taliban firing shots in the air to disperse the women, just 2 days ahead of the Taliban's first anniversary in power after the withdrawal of US and NATO forces. Their capture of Kabul on August 15, 2021 brought the hardline movement back into power after nearly 20 years, promises of change quickly forgotten.
Girls' schools are still closed. Women are being fired from their jobs for no reason, and poverty is increasing.
The last year has been hard for ordinary Afghans, many attempting to escape persecution and an economic collapse, many of the rest stuck in one of the world's worst humanitarian crises. Timothy Weeks' insistence the Taliban are a force for good will force many to despair. Eddie Meyer, 9 News.
One person has been killed and dozens injured at a music festival in the Spanish coastal city of Valencia when a section of the stage collapsed. High winds were too much for the brightly lit backdrop, which toppled onto the crowd. Ukraine has taken out a vital bridge in the south, cutting off thousands of Russian troops from their supply lines. Kherson is the only regional capital to have fallen to Putin's troops in the 5-month war, and recapturing it would deal a major propaganda blow to Russian forces. One of former US President Donald Trump's lawyers signed a letter in June asserting there was no more classified information at Trump's Mar-a-Lago residence. The revelation raises fresh questions about Trump's handling of classified material from his time in the White House. An ongoing investigation reached dramatic heights earlier this week when the FBI removed 11 sets of classified documents from his Florida home. 82-year-old Scotsman Nick Gardner looked around for a challenge and picked a beauty to climb every mountain in Scotland more than a kilometre high. There are 282 of them, his final ascent honoured by family and supporters. The challenge was inspired by his wife's Alzheimer's diagnosis. Right, Madeline Slattery is with us now for the latest on the weather, and there's been more heavy rain today, Maddie.
That's right, there has been, Alicia. The city has stayed dry, but areas to the east have had a drenching. The heaviest falls have been through West and South Gippsland, 55 millimetres at Lang Lang, 53 at Moe. Yarragon's collected 44 and Ballook's had 41, and that's after 40 yesterday. It's also sneaking into Melbourne's outer east, 26 millimetres at Monbulk, 22 at Cerberus. Pakenham's had 14 and Frankston has picked up 9. A low pressure system is sending in the showers and it isn't expected to move much overnight, so they will continue, but things should ease tomorrow as the low starts to move further south, and as we move into a new week, there's more showers ahead with some colder days and gusty winds in the mix, so I'm not exactly bursting with good weather news tonight, Alicia.
We will forgive you. All right, we'll welcome you back later on. Thank you so much, Maddie. Up next in Melbourne's 9 News, a new program helping women who want to expand their family after stillbirth. $25 million up in flames, a brand new super yacht destroyed by fire. And the little-known history of a hidden town no longer on the nose. A factory has gone up in flames in Dandenong South. The fire broke out at the Bessemer Drive property just after 9:30 this morning. Several crews worked to contain the blaze, which was eventually brought under control an hour later. 6 babies in Australia are stillborn every day, and now there's a helping hand for couples who've experienced the trauma and go on to expand their family. A pilot project is being launched providing free 24/7 support of a midwife to help them get through what can be an anxious and stressful time. Jane Azapati has the details.
In the Emery family,
his little feet.
The memory of baby Xavier will always be treasured.
I have 3 children, 3 little boys, but our first baby was stillborn. His name's Xavier. He would have been 7.5.
Parents Anne-Marie and Wade have since welcomed 2 more boys, Kai and Jessie, but neither of those pregnancies were easy.
It was always in the back of my mind that something could go wrong. We might not get to bring this baby home.
You're just worried the entire time, and you know it's weird. I mean, you know what happened last time, so you try to protect yourself by not getting too excited about it or getting too involved.
It's a worry many still families share.
The anxiety and fear that is present for women in a subsequent pregnancy can sort of almost be overwhelming and paralysing.
Now a pilot program hopes to take some of that anxiety away. Funding from charity bike ride Sydney to Canberra is helping the My Midwives group launch the Rainbow Baby Project, assigning a personal midwife for pregnancies following stillbirth, so women have someone to call 24/7 without repeating their history over and over.
Midwifery continuity of care has been demonstrated in randomised control trials and evidence internationally to reduce the rate of stillbirth by between 16 and 20%.
At the moment, the pilot is small, just 10 families Australia-wide, but they're hoping more corporate sponsors and maybe even governments will get on board so they can offer the service to more bereaved families.
It's just one less worry, really.
Yeah, it is.
Providing hope after heartbreak. Jane Azzopardi, 9 News.
The new owner of a $25 million super yacht never got the chance to take it out on the water, the luxury boat going up in flames just days after it was delivered. It had been brought to the Spanish-owned island of Formentera in the Mediterranean. The 44-metre long boat had a gym, pool and luxury cabins. Investigators are still unable to pinpoint what caused the blaze. 2 people are dead after their plane crash-landed in the US. A man and woman were on board the small aircraft when it went down in central Illinois, slamming into buildings before plummeting to the ground. The plane came to a stop on a roadway next to a packed restaurant, horrifying diners. The cause is being investigated. A US ski resort camera has captured what looks to be a meteor streaking across the sky. It's believed it blew up when it hit the atmosphere, causing a loud sonic boom, which was heard by residents in parts of Utah and Idaho.
What's that?
The phenomenon took place at the end of the Perseid meteor shower peak. Well, it's one of Victoria's more iconic regions, but for all its fame, very little is known about it. So tonight, an insight into the Werribee sewage farm and the people who once called it home. Tony Jones met them.
For more than a century, the Werribee sewage plant has been the butt of jokes, but it does hold a seriously fascinating history. A mini town full of families of the men who worked at the plant, and at its peak, 500 people lived there.
We used to have the Christmas parties and we had Santa turn up at the school, and we sort of knew who he was, but he came on the back of a truck and gave presents out to everyone, didn't he? Yeah.
The families were schooled here, played sport, shopped and enjoyed a life which, for the most part, was removed from the rest of the world.
We had a terrific education. I think it was really broad. We had sort of no specific subjects. We learnt a lot of everything, and because there were only a couple of kids in each grade, we all learnt from each other.
The sewage plant, which is the size of Phillip Island, was established in 1893 because the stench in Melbourne had become unbearable. The big smoke was on the nose.
They purchased land off the Churnside family, who were sheep owners at the time, and set the sewerage farm up. And because the place was so far away from Melbourne, then all the workers and their families had to live here.
It's not that those who lived here weren't free to come and go, but the mail run kept the small population in touch with the outside world. Marjorie O'Connor ran the post office for 10 years.
Not parcels like the Australia Post does today, because they were, unless it was a birthday or Christmas, and then it was different. There was a few, but mostly mail. Mail and postal notes, which I don't even know if they have anymore.
While the dads worked and the mums kept house, the kids, when they weren't at one of the 4 schools, would spend the warmer months at the pool. It's a little worse for wear these days, but memories of the pool are very much intact.
The pool was special because that was the main focus of our social.
Well, the kids used to
be there all the time.
Just walk to the pool, have a swim or whatever they did, get hungry, come home, have a feed.
Then there's the water tank.
The water tank? Yeah, well, we used to get it up to shenanigans under there.
Sport brought the community together. Tennis, cricket teams, footy teams, both men and women.
You would have had big crowds, wouldn't you?
Oh, it was right around. And the ladies had used to bring had a trestle, and they'd make all the homemade chutneys and sauces and best sponges, cream sponges, of course we had the cows.
Margaret's recollections extend to the dance hall. Now refurbished, it provided its own form of competition.
Football club had their dance in there every Saturday night, and if I was a good girl I was allowed to go, but I was 17 and I was belle of the ball in that hall there, yeah.
And met your future husband in there?
Yes, I did. He was a good dancer. He was good looking too.
The families lived through 2 world wars and other global challenges, yet they all survived.
You had the Depression and economic downturns, and yet they had food here that they could hunt. Every family was given 2 cows for milking, and so they had their own milk, made their own cream and butter.
But like any story, there is an ending, and when the last of the residents moved out in the early 1970s, those sounds of a small city fell silent.
Best days of my life living down here. Loved it. Absolutely loved it.
Tony Jones, 9 News.
Well, still to come in Melbourne's 9 News, play suspended as lightning crashes onto a Lara football field. A Melbourne woman takes her MS fight to the Himalayas, and the hunt for a red panda who escaped the zoo. The Insider's Guide to Feeding Your Family for Less.
There's crazy value if you want to look for it.
First on 9 News, fresh ideas from the market experts.
Feed a family of 4 for $15.
Bulk buying, freezing and lunchboxes. The best budget options.
To save money every single week.
9 News tomorrow. Incredible phone vision has captured lightning striking a tree on a footy field near Geelong. The local GFL clash had been called off just moments before the storm hit late yesterday. Well, climbing the highest mountains in the world is an immense challenge for the fit and healthy, but if you live with multiple sclerosis, the mere idea seems impossible. But Melbourne woman Jen Willis, who has MS, has her sights set on more than just raising funds for a cure. Joe Hall met her.
Edmund Hillary once said, "It's not the mountains we conquer, but ourselves."
Whatever life wants to throw at me to hold me back, I'm going, all right, I'm going to make leaps and bounds forward.
50-year-old Jen Willis is battling chronic multiple sclerosis, but is preparing to climb to the summit of the 7,000-metre Arme de Blam.
It includes vertical climbing up rock on 1,000-metre drops down below you and huge exposure.
Fear isn't part of this mum of three's vocabulary, but determination is.
I thought, wow, if ever I actually get that diagnosis, then I want to climb. I want to go and do that climb and climb that mountain I've always wanted to.
At this stage, Jen's symptoms are invisible.
I have about 30 lesions in my brain.
That results in dizziness, double vision, memory loss and a potential grim prognosis.
Within 3 to 4 years, perhaps I wouldn't be walking.
So with that came a sense of urgency. Her climb is in November. For now, there's 6 days a week of training and a mountaineering course climbing and camping to the summit of Mount Kosciuszko.
So that was very intensive carrying, I'm only 46 kilos and carrying a pack that was 30 kilos through the snow.
It helps a little having friends in high places.
George Hillary explained to me as part of it is just being tough. You know, it doesn't matter how fit you are physically, it's mental toughness.
It's an amazing pursuit and it's an incredible achievement for anyone to do, and I'm just thrilled to hear that Jen's just going after one of her passions.
The grandson of Sir Edmund Hillary is providing mentoring and support for Jen and is in the know. He and his brother have reached the summit of the mountain she's hoping to conquer.
Arme de Blam and mountaineering more generally, it is a dangerous sport, so it's really important to make sure you've done your preparation.
Raising money for research into MS is obviously a major motivation for Jen, but there's also another goal, and that's inspiring others with the chronic illness.
For me to climb a mountain, for another person to, raise a child, get a job here, travel to there, whatever it is.
The pinnacle, so to speak, as in Mount Everest, wasn't once a dream, but is now. And Jen is eyeing that apex in the next year.
I just want to become some, badass woman with MS who mountaineers around the world. So, we'll see.
Joe Hall, 9 News.
Well, Adelaide zookeepers have closed in on a furry fugitive, Ravi the red panda, retrieved from high up in a tree outside the zoo's walls. After 6 attempts, a tranquiliser dart did the trick, a quick poke with a pole, enough to eventually tip him out and down to the keepers waiting below. It's not yet known how the 7-year-old escaped, but his tree change is thought to have lasted several days. All right, Clint Stanaway is here now with all of tonight's sport.
Good catch. Thanks, Alicia. After the break, Ginnivan injured as Collingwood's winning streak comes to a halt. The moment Buddy went bang, sending those Swannies into dreamland. The Tigers booked their ticket to September and they're looking pretty ominous. And red faces as the Red Devils hit the skids. Good evening. Collingwood's winning streak has come to an end with Lance Buddy Franklin inspiring Sydney to a 27-point win at the SCG. Franklin's freak third goal killed off any chance of a Magpies comeback after Jack Ginnivan suffered a hamstring injury. Joshua Dorr with the highlights.
The black and white charge brought to a halt by a Sydney side steaming towards September.
Clever tap, Franklin! The greatest show on earth!
Hindered by the loss of Jordan De Goey to a hip injury, Collingwood looked a little shaky, while every Swan had a spring in their step.
To Rampy, wanders up from defence, unloads long and sets the SCG alight.
Nick Dacos was feeling some extra attention. Thankfully, the Pies had another to turn to.
For the great Dacos, that's a name that oozes great.
But with a sellout crowd rocking, Sydney's own superstar made his mark.
Maynard wouldn't be dislodged, but Franklin was there doing the roving and the finishing.
They could smell blood until the Pies barometer stepped in.
Ginnivan taken high.
The home fans unhappy, quickly silenced by Jack Ginnivan's crucial goal, but it would be his final act, subbed out with a hamstring issue, and Buddy got back to business.
Little snapper around the corner, he's on.
It looked like this time the Magpies wouldn't stop the bleeding. Ash Johnson had other ideas.
He has said that there was not enough pressure on there.
Rewarded for pressuring a controversial rushed behind, with some sloppy Swan skills giving hope of a final term comeback.
Right on 50. Oh, he hasn't! He has!
But Dane Rampy's desperation ensured the young bloods would take bragging rights into yet another finals campaign. Joshua Dorr, 9 News.
A monster day out from Tom Lynch has propelled Richmond to a 61-point victory over Hawthorn. Lynch booted 8 goals in the MCG mauling as the Tigers put the foot down with a brilliant burst in the third term. But they've got a few injury problems. Xander Maguire reports.
It's a familiar but daunting sight for many footy fans. Richmond is heading back to September.
What a September ahead we have, and the Tigers will be there again.
It was the Tom Lynch show from the beginning, booting 3 goals in the opening term and 4 for the half.
For his 50th goal of the season, and what a way to do it.
And while the Hawks had a flash of magic,
And suddenly Kaczynski puts it through.
it was Tiger time early.
And on the siren, he's delivered again for the Tigers.
There was some momentary resistance from Liam Shields with what might be one of his last goals for the club.
He's giving this absolutely everything, and he will cherish moments like that.
But it was all about Tom Lynch, the Tigers superstar kicking a career-high 8 straight.
For number 8 at the MCG, the linchpin, the kingpin.
And while Lynch was the focal point, Morris Rioli Jr. showed here some tricks of his own too.
He found a way just to seduce the footy, and the beneficiary is T. Lynch.
Richmond's ruthless rout continued, piling on 9 goals in the third. Jai Sarong's first goal in football, however, providing Hawks fans with something to smile about on a dismal afternoon.
Right through the middle.
A Shane Edwards hamstring scare and a Jack Graham ankle injury, the only blemishes on an otherwise perfect afternoon for the Tigers. Still, Richmond having a lot to feel confident about tonight.
I'll walk away really happy with the way we played.
Xander Maguire, 9 News.
Well, Port Adelaide is putting Essendon to the sword tonight at Marvel Stadium. A short time ago in that match, the Power led by 43 points early in the final quarter. The Bombers had few answers as the visitors ran right in a dominant second term, conceding 7 goals in a row.
Aim on. Aiming perfectly.
It's no doubt relief for Ken Hinkley and the Power, who are poised to snap their 4-game losing streak. To the ladder now with 1 round to play. Geelong has won the minor premiership. Sydney is up into second. Melbourne has slipped to third. The Magpies have dropped to fifth, while Carlton is now 8th ahead of that must-win match next weekend. The Doggies are now the only side realistically that can make the 8. And the race for the Coleman medal has tightened with Charlie Curnow just 3 ahead of Jeremy Cameron. Tom Lynch was today's big mover after that bag of 8. Still on the footy, and let's get the latest on last night, where Carlton coach Michael Voss has urged the Blues to embrace the hype around what he says is now a virtual elimination final against Collingwood next Sunday. But after last night's heartbreaking loss to the Demons, more disappointment today, with Matthew Kennedy ruled out for the rest of the season. A trip to the VFL for Max Gawn and his Demons after a night they won't forget in a hurry.
Pickett kicks. Is it a point or a goal?
It's a goal!
And when the siren sounded 11 seconds later, the crowd, players and coaches were emotional wrecks.
Footy's a great game, and it hurts. It hurts.
The Blues must reset and fast. Needing a win over Collingwood to stamp their ticket to September, the next 7 days will be all about them. But Michael Voss doesn't think that's a bad thing.
It's effectively an elimination final, really. It's about exposure for us. We're playing these sorts of games. It's just it can only be a good thing for us.
They should regain Adam Cerra for the contest after he was forced out of last night's loss with a tight groin. But George Hewitt is still a number of weeks off, while the club has put a line through Matthew Kennedy for the rest of the season with a Liz Frank injury. As for Melbourne, its focus now shifts to a bumper clash with Brisbane on Friday night at the Gabba.
This is the type of win that this group can embody, and we haven't done that all year, really. To win a real close game and to show enormous character.
Forced to do it the hard way last night, forward entries are still a bit of a concern for the Premiers, but as they discovered last season, things can click quickly.
It's not perfect at the moment, but we're going to keep on chipping away, and hopefully it works in the next 3, 4, 5 weeks.
Overseas, a Manchester United start to the EPL season has gone from bad to worse. The Red Devils now on the bottom of the table for the first time in 30 years after an embarrassing showing to Brentford. They conceded 4.
Manchester United are being destroyed.
Elsewhere, Man City scored 4 of its own against newly promoted Bournemouth. Arsenal also stayed unbeaten with a 4-2 win over Leicester City. While all of the talk is about his rumoured defection to the Live Golf Tour, Cameron Smith is quietly closing in on the world #1 ranking. Victory at the St Jude Championship will get him that prize, and he's right in the hunt after 2 crucial birdies.
We have talked about it a lot. That putting stroke, I mean, it's mesmerizing.
Smith's 3 under par 67 brings him 2 shots off the lead heading into tonight's final round. That is Sunday Sport for you.
Great stuff, Clint. Thank you for that. Time now to check back in with Maddie. And Maddie, will there be more showers around Melbourne tonight?
Mainly through the east, Alicia. Outer eastern suburbs could pick up another 5 to 15 millimetres, but there's only likely to be a shower or 2 around the city. It'll be light and only a spot of rain in the west. I'll have the latest 7-day forecast for you next. Hello again. It's been a lot calmer around Melbourne today after yesterday's storms, but not as warm. The city peaked at 15 degrees at 15 past 4 this afternoon. Western suburbs recorded the highest maximums, peaking at 15, and Geelong reached 16. It was cooler in the east, 12 degrees at Rosebud and just 11 degrees at Frankston. Ferny Creek only reached a top of 8, and those cooler conditions were due to showers moving into that part of town. 23 millimetres at Rosebud, 26 at Monbulk, 14 at Pakenham, and Phillip Island has picked up 20. The Western South Gippsland district has been hit with the heaviest falls. This vision here shows the rain teeming down at Lock, and that's after heavy rain hit the same area yesterday. Since 9 a.m, there have been widespread totals in excess of 25 millimetres. Baluk has recorded 43 after receiving 40 yesterday. Lang Lang and Moe have collected 57 today, 46 at Yarragon, 35 at Traralgon and Warragul. A low pressure trough sitting over eastern parts of Bass Strait is delivering the heavy falls. Lows have the potential to deliver very high totals as they can be slow moving, and this one isn't expected to move much tonight, but it should drift away to the southeast tomorrow, so we can expect conditions to ease, but a trough will trigger more showers along the coast. Warrnambool is expected to receive up to 10 millimetres and up to 25 mils at Wilson's Prom, another 15 for the Latrobe Valley, and showers will fall as snow above 1,200 metres, and it should be a good week for the snowfields with some healthy falls forecast. Northern districts can expect a cool night with minimums of 4 and 5 degrees, but it will stay a few degrees higher through the south, and much of the state is in for a cool day with maximums in the low teens. But the far east will be a little warmer. Mallacoota is heading for 17 degrees. Showers are expected to persist through Melbourne's eastern suburbs overnight with another 5 to 15 millimetres, and they'll continue tomorrow with up to 15 millimetres at Rosebud and Pakenham, 10 at Scoresby and Yarra Glen, but less than 5 millimetres elsewhere. And after an overnight minimum of 7, 8 or 9 degrees, it's only expected to reach 13 or 14 tomorrow. 15 degrees at Werribee. Geelong is heading for 14 degrees, but only a light shower or two, and the city is also expected to reach 14 with up to 4 millimetres of showers. And those showers will be with us right through until Saturday, a top of 15 on Tuesday, dry on Wednesday morning, but showers will pick up later in the day with some gusty winds, and the heaviest falls are forecast for Thursday. It'll also be the windiest day, so up to 10 millimetres and a top of 16. 14 degrees on Friday, 13 on Saturday, and it should be dry next Sunday with a top of 14. Tonight, the city is forecast to drop to 10 degrees and it's heading for 14 tomorrow with up to 4 millimetres of showers. So the start of a bleak week, Alicia.
Sounds like it, Maddie. Thank you very much for that. And that is 9 News this Sunday. I hope you have a great evening. For now, good night.